In this video, we will be looking at door and window IDs, how to place them, how to control their location, and also how to control the numbering. Now, in Vectorworks 2019, there is a second way of doing IDs in window objects, and that is using the new data tag object. So we'll also be looking at that. So when you're going to start placing IDs in drawings, the first thing you need to do is to set up which IDs you want to use. And you can do this by selecting any window object. We click on the settings button and then click on ID symbols, and here we can choose door, window, combo ID, and you've got an extra one here. So let's just randomly choose the ones that we want here. So we'll go with that one for doors. We'll go with the hexagonal one for windows, and just to be different, we'll go with the rectangular one for combo units. Now note here, apply symbol settings to all objects. So we can click that, and that will apply these settings to all of the window objects in the drawing. So we'll go ahead and click that, then click OK. And now we're ready to begin. So I guess the most logical way to insert an ID is to select the object and make your choices in the object info palette by clicking display plan ID after having chosen which schedule it should go on: door, window, combo, other, or none. The default will probably be none. And if you click the display plan ID, then you're going to see the object ID appear. This can get tedious if you've got a lot of objects to do. So let's look at an alternative way using the window ID tool. Now this is in the DIMS notes tool set, and this is the tool here. And we'll begin by taking a look at the various options that this tool has to offer. Now the tool has two major functions. One is altering the ID, which we're going to look at now. The other is it will also link window objects to spaces. So to be working with IDs, you need to have it set on this one here. This is the current next number for doors, windows, combos, and other ones. So whatever these are set to is what the next number is going to be. Automatically set the on schedule choice. So if you haven't already chosen which schedule this should go on to, then having this checked will automatically, if it's a door, it will put it on the door schedule. If it's a window, it'll put it on the window schedule, and so on. Automatically turn on display plan ID. So that's generally the idea here. So we'll leave that checked. If you're working in 3D and you want to also see the elevation IDs, then you can have that checked as well. Reposition ID only. So this is for when you just want to move the ID to a different location without changing the number. So we'll leave that off. Center ID off window object. So that will position the ID in the center of the window object. So it would be sort of in this line that I'm indicating here, or for this one it would be in this horizontal line here. Use fixed distance from the wall center. So if you check that, then the IDs are going to be offset from the wall by that amount. So this probably is good for external doors, but you might want to set it back to 0 when you're doing internal doors. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you how this works. So you can click on any part of the window object, and with the options we have selected, it actually doesn't matter where I do my second click. But if you were defining where the object was going, then your second click will position it. But we've said, okay, we want to position it 450 millimeters off the wall in the center, so it's going to appear there regardless of where I do my second click. So let's proceed around this little building, and you'll see if I click out here, it's still going to position itself automatically. And we can come around here, and you'll note that you can go between doors and windows, and it will increment them correctly. So we can run around here. Here's a combo unit, so that's going to get a different one. We can jump back to a window. It's going to now be up to window 3, window 4, and so on. So that's the simple way to number doors and windows, probably in smaller projects or even in bigger projects, I guess, but it's a quick way to get the numbers happening and the IDs positioned where you want them to be. So let's say you had gone around the whole building and numbered them, and then you wanted to go back and reposition some of the IDs. Let's just take a quick look at how you could do that. We'll come back here to our settings. We'll go reposition ID only. And let's say we wanted the door IDs to be in the center. So we could choose center ID off window object and set this back to 0. And if we click OK, and if I click on this and then back to here, it's going to come back to the center. Actually, it doesn't matter where I do the second click because we've told it to go back to the center. So that way you can quickly get the IDs positioned. Maybe the internal doors are like this, the external ones, you've got the ID on the outside, and so on. The window elevation IDs work in a similar way. You select the object, and you've seen this option down here, display elevation ID, and if we choose that, then the IDs are going to appear on the outside of the door or window unit. In the settings dialog, under ID symbols, whatever your choice is here in terms of the symbol you're going to use will be the same for both the plan and elevation. So in other words, you can't have a different looking ID or an ID containing different information from the plan and elevation with the built-in IDs. Now, one thing you will notice is that with combination units, when you set this on schedule to combo, you get 3 additional ID fields here. And we'll look at those in a moment because they are used by the data tag objects. To insert IDs using the data tag tool, you would first select the tool in the DIMS Notes toolset, and then click on the pop-up here and choose the one that you want. Now we're going to scroll down here to some pre-formatted ones in the window file, and if you just want to use the door and window numbers that you have created using window, then you use any of the IDs that begin with 1. So this round one here, this one here, this 2-line one, or this 2-line one. All of these are designed to pick up the same ID information that the built-in tags in window will use. So let's go ahead and say take this one here. And there's a few options up here in the toolbar, and the 2 that are used when inserting window ID tags are these 2 here, the select single object mode and the select eligible objects mode. So in the first mode here, we need to highlight the window object. You can see it's turned red, and once it's highlighted, if I click, it will put the tag in there. Let's repeat that here again, and you'll see that this will show D2 because that was the number that we created with the window ID tool a bit earlier. Now it will also let me put this same tag on Windows, so if you wanted to have a different tag on the window, then you would need to choose the hexagonal shape one, say this one here. Let's go ahead with that one, and you'll see if we put this on the window, then we get the tag there. Now the thing about these is that you can't, unless you want to have a leader line, and generally we don't use leader lines with tags, you have to insert the object over the window, door or window, and then move the tag to where you want it. But once it's there, if you move the window object, then the tag is kind of associated with it. If you delete the window object, then the tag gets deleted as well. Now there's another way that you can put these tags in, and I'll just get rid of these ones, and that's using the second mode of the tool, and you'll see that this is not necessarily beneficial, and this was normally done in viewport annotations, but let's look at it anyway. So selecting this mode here, you'll see as soon as we put the cursor on the drawing, all of the window objects become highlighted, and one single click on one window object will insert a tag on all of them. Now this is okay, but if I want to use a different shape tag on the windows, for example, I've got to go around and delete all the ones on the windows, or vice versa for the doors. And then if I do it again and then try and insert it on all the doors, then it will still insert it on all the windows and doors together. So it's a kind of a limitation with the tool. But let's just back out of that for a moment and look at how this might work in a viewport. So we'll go and just create a standard viewport. So here's our viewport, and I'll now edit the annotation. And in annotations mode, now let's do exactly the same thing we just did. We'll take the data tag, we've got the one line hexagonal tag, and you can see already that all of the objects, as soon as I put the cursor over the drawing, all of the objects are selected, and one click here is going to put that tag in here. Now, as I illustrated before, if a window object is moved, then the tags are going to move with it. So let's just demonstrate that. We'll jump back to the design layer, and let's just grab this wall and move it a little bit, and take this object and move it, and then return to the viewport. And you can see that all of these data tag objects have hung in with the window objects. So that's how it can work in a plan view. In a 3D view, if we were to duplicate this viewport, just edit the annotation again and get rid of all those tags. And say set this to a back view. And we'll set it to hidden line, update. So again, we'll go to annotations. So the automatic mode, again, is not going to work that well for us, because you can see already that it's highlighted even the doors and windows that we can't see, and one click here is going to put a tag on everything, even the things in the back wall or the side walls. So that's kind of not what we want to do. So if we go back to this mode, then we can say, okay, great, let's put the tag on this window and this window. I can see it's picked up the wrong window there, which you can see by the highlight at the back. So you've got to pay attention to what's being highlighted in it. So there we've got that one now. That one is a bit easier to get. And then for the doors, we'd have to switch back to this tag here. And so, you can put the tags in there and then, come in and reposition them where they're needed. Now these tags are going to move with the doors and windows as well. So you don't have to worry about that aspect of them. So they have their pluses and minuses, but hopefully there'll be cases where you can put these to good use. Now, all of the tags that we have defined are actually symbols. They're red symbols, which means that they're styled symbols. And if you want to edit one of the tags, you can do this in the Resource Manager. Just right-click, choose Edit, and these are all the fields that you can control. But I'm particularly interested in the tag layout here. So let's take a quick look at that. So when you're in an ID tag, the Object Info palette will call out the text in a special way, text in tag layout. And the top half seems normal, but down the bottom here you can see tag layout. Use dynamic text, and you can define the tag field. So here we have defined this as Windows 6 ID number. And so the object name was Windows 6, and the full ID is what's being displayed here. Now, let's say, for example, that you wanted to make this a 2-line tag. So we could move this up, possibly reduce the font size a little bit, duplicate this, maybe reduce that again to 7 point. Perhaps we draw a line across here. And remember, this is a symbol definition we're editing, so all of the IDs that have used this tag will get affected by this. And then we want to choose a different field to link this to. And if we come down to the define tag field, now what I want to link it to in this case is the user1 field, which is __ user1, and I can just change that directly. So let's go ahead and click OK with that, and then exit out of this, and you can see that all of these circular tags have changed here, in the elevation, and my user field 1 is displaying the actual width by height. So you can get some idea of how these work and when they might be useful to use. Let's then take a look at how we can set the actual numbers in the IDs. Now, the most basic way to do this is to do it on an object-by-object basis. So you can select one window or object, click the settings button, then in the ID numbers, you can change the number here. Now, the reason you can't change this directly in the object info palette is because this number is built up from a prefix and a suffix. The suffix isn't always used, but the prefix is generally used. So you have to do it in here. So that's kind of how to do it on a one-by-one basis. The next way to do it, which is a bit quicker to run through the drawing, assuming you've already got the IDs there positioned, is to take the window ID tool. And in the settings here, what you would do is to turn everything off except for don't change the ID position. So essentially what this is going to do is to renumber the IDs starting with whichever number you have here. So let's say our doors will start at 1 and let's say our windows will start at 20. And we click OK, then it's a matter of doing 2 clicks. Even though we're not changing the ID position, you still need to do 2 clicks. So when we do our 2 clicks here, you'll see that this changed to W20 because this was in the scheduled to go on the window schedule, and same with this one, so that will become 21. Then our doors, so I can click on that one, that's become D1, D2, D3, and so on, D4. The third way you can control or edit the ID numbers is by going to the settings dialog, and in the ID numbers tab you will get a list of all of the objects that are listed to go on the door schedule. So this is a styled object, which is why this is grayed out. Now currently this is only listing IDs on the active layer, but we've added an additional filter here that allows you to filter out these objects or filter in these objects based on information that you have in the user field. So for example, if I wanted to number everything based on the style name, this is user field 3 is the style name, DT1, door type 1. So if we go back to ID numbers and we go, okay, let's filter this by user field 3, we are now only seeing a list of the doors that are of the type DT1, door type 1. And I could then say, okay, start this numbering at 23, and these are the proposed IDs, these are the existing ones, and if I then wanted to change it, I would just click this update button and the IDs will update accordingly. But if we said, well, just jumping back here, this user field 20 has the space building which we are using as the apartment number followed by the style name. And so we end up with 101, which is the apartment number, and the style name, which is DT1, door type 1. So if we jump back here and set this to user field 20, then it's going to show us all of the type 1 doors, DT1 doors in apartment 101. But maybe we want to see all of the doors in apartment 101, not just the DT1 doors. And so we can say to this, okay, just use the first 3 characters, and that's going to then list all of the doors in apartment 101. And I can then say, okay, again, let's start this at, let's say 15, because we know that's where we're up to. And we just click update IDs on drawing. We go, yes, you'll see these IDs are now 15, 16, 17, 18. And when we go back out to the drawing, you'll see that these have changed to 15, 16, 17, and 18. So that way you can really control the ID numbers and choose the system that might work for the particular building type that you're working with. The final thing I wanted to illustrate is the use of multiple IDs on a single object. Let's take a look at this object here, and in the form dialog you'll see that we've got a double hung window either side of a pair of sliding doors, and assume here that you want to have a separate ID on each of these components. So this is the built-in ID for window, and we'll use the data tag to add some additional IDs. So taking the data tag, we'll go to Vectorworks Libraries Object Styles, data tag, down to window, and remember that the ID1 tags will just replicate what the inbuilt tag would display. So I'll just show you that. So let's first put an ID1 tag on here, and you'll see that that just says C21. Now these tags are independent of the object. You can move them around. Now let's go and choose an ID2 tag, and you've got up to 3 additional tags as well as the inbuilt one you can add to an object. So we'll go with ID2, and I'll put that over here, and we haven't nominated a number for that yet. And then let's jump to ID3, and we'll put that on this side here. Now there are 2 ways that we can populate these. This is a combo unit, and when it's a combo unit, that's when you get the additional fields here. So if I went W01 here, you'll see that that data tag gets populated with W01, and probably we'd want to have that down there. And that's the data 2 tag, this is the data 3 tag. So again, selecting the object, I could go W02, and that will populate that one there. Now, because this is not just a number, but it's text, and the information is fully within one field, in other words, it's not a concatenated field like this has a suffix and a prefix, you can also double-click this, choose to edit the tag data, and change the value that way as well, and that will push that value back to the window object, which you can see there. Now here we're showing the IDs in a plan view, but if we go to a front view, the same thing will work there. So again, let's take the tag tool. We've got tag 3. Got to make sure that the object highlights in red. If it doesn't highlight in red, like now for example, clicking won't insert the tag, so it has to highlight red. Then you'll see we get that tag there. We'll go back to, let's go up to open files, and you'll see these tags in our active file. Number 2 is the one I want to put over here, and let's just put in a number 1 as well, an ID1, and that will put the original, make sure it's highlighted. There we go. Now if we select these and look in a top plan view, you will see that they are quite close to the object, and you may want to just nudge them a little bit away from the object. So then if you go to a right ISO view, so that they are readable.